It's colossal, stretching nearly 100 feet long, weighing hundreds of tons and fueled by raw power. The Big Boy is often called the largest locomotive ever built, a machine that crossed mountains, inspired generations, and became the ultimate symbol of American railroad muscle. But what if much of what you've heard about it isn't exactly true? Was the Big Boy really the biggest of them all? Did its fame come from performance or from appearance? Behind the documentaries, collector models, and nostalgic photos lies a story filled with exaggerations, technical debates, and questionable decisions. It was born on the brink of World War II, at a time when the railroad industry was about to change forever. Ready to discover the other side of this steel legend? Stick with me to the end, because the final truth may change the way you see the Big Boy forever. The title of biggest locomotive in the world is disputed. Mention the Big Boy, and the first claim you'll hear is the largest steam locomotive ever built. And yes, it's undeniably massive, nearly 100 feet long, articulated 4884 wheel configuration, and weighing over 1.2 million pounds with its tender fully loaded. But was it really the biggest? Other locomotives, like the DM&IR Yellowstone, operated by the Duluth, Missabe and Iron Range Railway, posted figures that challenged Big Boy's throne. The Yellowstone, for instance, delivered more tractive effort, 140,000 pounds force versus Big Boy's 135,000, and it was roughly the same length. Then there's the Virginian AE, which featured electric boosters that gave it a total output rivaling or even surpassing the Big Boy. So why did Big Boy get the crown? Union Pacific mastered publicity, stunning photographs, bold marketing, and the nickname Big Boy, hand-chalked on the prototype by a shop worker, helped create an iconic image, a brand, a legend. But when you dig deeper, Big Boy doesn't dominate every category. She's massive, yes, but the definition of biggest depends on what you're measuring. Length, power, speed, tractive effort. In the battle of stats, the story isn't as clear-cut as people think. Its top speed is questionable. Union Pacific's official materials list the Big Boy's top speed as 80 miles per hour. That's a staggering number for something that weighs over 1 million pounds. But did it ever really go that fast? To this day, there are no verified records of a Big Boy reaching 80 miles per hour in real-world service. Railroad engineers and rolling stock specialists of the era argue that even under ideal downhill conditions, the locomotive rarely exceeded 65 or 70 miles per hour. Its massive weight and mechanical complexity made high-speed operation both impractical and dangerous. More importantly, the Big Boy wasn't built for speed. It was designed to haul heavy freight over the Wasatch Mountains, and in that mountainous terrain, brute pulling force mattered more than cruising velocity. Some claim that 80 miles per hour was only achieved in theoretical testing, no load, straight track. A far cry from the actual working conditions. Even if one unit came close once or twice, those were exceptions, not the rule. It's like claiming a Formula One car can go 250 miles per hour, when in reality, track limits keep it under 200. Impressive on paper, but not what really happens on the ground. And when it comes to the Big Boy, plenty of numbers seem crafted more to impress than to reflect real performance. Massive consumption and low efficiency. If the Big Boy did one thing better than any other locomotive, it was burn fuel and water, a lot of it. On average, it consumed around 12 tons of coal and 12,000 gallons of water for every few hundred miles. Long trips required constant stops just to refuel and refill water tanks. And despite what some might think, it didn't use advanced combustion systems, just plain, raw coal fed manually via a semi-automated screw system. Meanwhile, diesel-electric locomotives were just starting to rise. They needed fewer stops, smaller crews, less maintenance, and delivered equal or better performance at a fraction of the cost. The Big Boy was magnificent, but efficient? Not even close. It was heavy, expensive, and had an insatiable appetite. More a symbol of raw strength than a practical long-term solution for modern freight transport. Imagine trying to haul freight with a hungry beast that devours everything in its path. It's powerful, but costly, and when the costs outweigh the benefits, it's game over. Its operational costs were massive. Running a standard steam locomotive was already a challenge, but operating a big boy, that was in a class of its own. Each unit required a full crew: engineer, firemen, assistants, and maintenance staff. The upkeep was daily. Constant inspections of the axles, articulated joints, pistons, brake systems, and pressure valves were required. Even the smallest malfunction could mean a breakdown or worse. The amount of coal and water it consumed also drove up logistical expenses. Water towers and coal depots had to be placed strategically along routes. On top of that, the tracks had to be reinforced to handle the weight. And the big boy needed extra wide curves due to its massive wheelbase. And then came the diesel locomotives, cheaper, lighter, more autonomous, and easier to maintain. The big boy, once the crown jewel of Union Pacific, slowly became a financial burden. It's one of the great ironies of railroad history. The locomotive built to conquer everything was ultimately conquered by cost. By the way, are you enjoying this deep dive into Big Boy's real story? If so, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell. It helps a ton and ensures this kind of content reaches more fans of these mechanical giants. It came out at the wrong time. Imagine spending millions to develop a revolutionary new machine, only to realize, just a few years later, that it's already outdated. That's exactly what happened to the big boy. The locomotive was designed in 1940 and entered service in 1941. Right as World War II pushed every industry to its limits. Union Pacific needed something that could haul enormous loads over the Wasatch Mountains without the need for additional locomotives. On paper, the big boy seemed perfect. But while she was rolling out, something else was rolling in: diesel-electric engines. They were lighter, simpler to operate, more fuel efficient, and needed fewer stops. And in just a few years, they took over American railroads. The big boy was born at a time when steam was on the way out. She never had the chance to fully prove herself because the world around her was already moving forward. It's like releasing a propeller plane the same year jet engines revolutionized aviation. No matter how well engineered it is, the future is going in a different direction. And that leads us to a question that still causes debate today. Debate over its real necessity. Even back in the day, Big Boy sparked heated debates among engineers. One question that still divides experts today is, was it ever truly necessary? Union Pacific bet big on the idea of building one massive locomotive that could do the work of 2 or 3 smaller ones. But many professionals at the time argued that a fleet of smaller, more efficient locomotives would have been cheaper, easier to maintain, and just as effective. And in practice, that proved true. Yes, Big Boy reduced the need for helper locomotives in mountain territory. But the trade-off was enormous spending on fuel, infrastructure, and maintenance. And when something went wrong, the whole operation came to a halt. Smaller modular units had flexibility. If one failed, the others could keep the train moving. Then came the diesel revolution, and with it, locomotives that were easier to manage, cheaper to run, and far more adaptable. Suddenly, the idea of building a single mechanical giant seemed more like an ego project than a smart long-term solution. Many engineers and historians now agree. Big Boy was a technical and logistical overreach. Impressive, yes, but overbuilt, overpriced, and ultimately unnecessary. It became an icon, but was it really the right solution? Controversies like that only grew louder when Union Pacific decided to bring her back. The 2014 restoration sparked controversy. In 2019, the railworld stopped to watch a legend come back to life. Big Boy number 4014, out of service since 1961, was fully restored and returned to active rails after years of painstaking work. At first, the reaction seemed unanimous: excitement, celebration, awe. But it didn't take long for debate to take over. Some experts called the restoration more of a marketing move than a true historical revival. Others pointed to the modern upgrades, electronic components, altered internal systems, and argued that it stripped the machine of its authenticity. There were also concerns about safety. Reviving such a massive, complex locomotive raised serious questions about operational risk, especially since modern tracks and infrastructure weren't designed for this kind of weight or mechanical stress. And yet, the crowds showed up in force. thousands lined up across the country to see her run. Drones followed her across open landscapes. Families cried watching her roar to life. It felt like watching a dinosaur breathe again. But underneath the cheers and photo ops, a serious question lingered. Was this a living piece of history, or just a polished showpiece? No matter what side you're on, one thing is certain: few machines have ever stirred up this much passion decades after being retired. Legendary, but not because of performance. Today, Big Boy is a symbol. You'll find it on t-shirts, books, documentaries, museum displays, even model train sets. It represents the peak of steam power in American railroads. But performance-wise, it was far from the best. Technically speaking, Big Boy wasn't the strongest, not the fastest, not the most efficient. Other engines of the time pulled more, burned less, or hit higher speeds. And her working life wasn't even that long, just about 20 years before being retired in the early 1960s. So why is she remembered? Because of her size, her sound, her presence. That endless row of wheels and pistons, spewing smoke as it thundered through mountain terrain, left an impression few could forget. Not a performance champion, but a spectacle. Funny how in engineering, the machines we remember most aren't always the best, but the ones that left a mark. And Big Boy? She left a mark like no other. But now it's time to reveal what really turned her into a myth. The untold truth. Big Boy didn't become a legend the day she was launched, or the day she conquered the Rocky Mountains, or even the day she pulled dozens of freight cars up steep grades. She became a legend after she died. During her active years, Big Boy was seen as a mechanical headache. Expensive to run, hard to maintain, and quickly outdated. Sure, she earned respect, but mostly for her brute force, not her results. It was only after she disappeared from the rails that her image began to evolve. Her absence created nostalgia. The photos became artwork. A new generation of engineers started seeing her as a masterpiece, and the public, enchanted by the romance of the steam era, rebuilt her image as something mythical. She went from operational burden to legendary icon. Today, people celebrate Big Boy, not for what she achieved, but for what she represents. And that's the real controversy. She became a myth not through efficiency, but through spectacle. She was surpassed by smaller, smarter, more capable machines, but none of them made our hearts race like she did. Maybe that's why, despite all her flaws, we still admire her, because in the end, it's not stats that create legends. It's the feeling they leave behind in those who saw, or dreamed of seeing, these giants thunder down the tracks. Today, you see the other side of Big Boy. Not just the monster that conquered the rails, but the flawed, controversial machine that history turned into one of the most beloved legends in railroading. She wasn't the strongest, not the fastest, not the most efficient, but she was, maybe still is, the most unforgettable. Because Big Boy isn't just a locomotive, she's a living relic. A machine that didn't just haul freight. She carried history, nostalgia, pride, and proof that a machine's emotional impact can outweigh any technical metric. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these truths about Big Boy surprised you most? Do you think she deserves legendary status despite all her shortcomings? If you had the chance, would you go see her run in person? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice helps keep the history of these giants alive. And of course, if you're into this kind of content, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. It really helps the channel grow and tells YouTube our content matters, so it gets shared with more rail fans like you. And don't forget, every week, there's a new video exploring the most incredible machines ever to conquer history, steel, and sometimes even logic. See you in the next one.